Ever think about like how much rides on the quality of the stuff we use every day? I mean, especially when you think about things like medicine, it's got to be right.
Oh, absolutely. And that's actually what we're going to be diving into today. This really interesting shift happening in how that quality is assured in the first place.
Yeah.
We're talking about AI and big data coming into the world of quality control.
Yeah, it's like a whole new level of making sure things are up to snuff.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we've been poring over a bunch of different sources, transcripts, excerpts, all that good stuff, mainly focused on how pharmaceuticals are developed and manufactured.
Right, because that's like the ultimate high stakes quality game.
Exactly. And what's cool is these sources give us a bunch of different perspectives on how technology is shaking things up
Hmm.
when it comes to making sure those products are top notch.
Okay, so where do we even begin with this? Like, what's our main mission for this deep dive?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to really grasp the tangible ways AI is being used, not just conceptually. We're talking about how it actually helps predict potential quality hiccups before they even happen.
Oh, like it can see into the future of quality or something?
In a way, yeah. It can also spot those unexpected issues that pop up
Hmm.
and even help people make better decisions about how to handle things.
Okay, so it's like having an AI quality control guru on your shoulder?
Kind of. But we also want to explore its impact on seeing those long-term trends, figuring out ways to make testing methods more effective, and this whole fascinating concept of digital twins.
Yeah, I've heard about those. It's like having a virtual copy of everything, right?
Exactly. And ultimately, we want to leave you with those clear insights, real-world examples of what AI is truly bringing to the table in this whole world of quality control.
Okay, I'm hooked. So let's unpack this whole thing. Like, how are we seeing those traditional ways of checking quality evolve now that AI and big data are in the picture?
Well, what's really interesting is this shift away from those old school reactive checks, where you only find problems after they've already happened. AI and big data analytics are allowing companies to be a lot more proactive.
Proactive, like they can actually prevent issues rather than just putting out fires later on.
Exactly. They do this through predictive monitoring, anomaly detection, and this whole decision support thing. The goal is to keep a constant eye on those processes and catch potential issues way earlier on, rather than just testing the finished product and hoping for the best.
Right, it's like preventing the fire in the first place rather than waiting for the smoke alarm to go off. So let's dig into these different approaches. This whole predictive monitoring thing sounds like a real game changer. How does AI actually know what might go wrong in the future?
So you know how powerful data analysis is, right? Well, AI algorithms are incredibly good at sifting through massive amounts of data to find those subtle patterns and connections that us humans might miss.
Right, it's like they can see the forest for the trees, or maybe the trees for the forest in this case.
Yeah, exactly. And in manufacturing, this could involve looking at tons of data streaming in from sensors on machinery,
Yeah.
environmental factors like temperature and humidity, even the stuff the product is made of.
So it's like the AI is taking everything into account, not just looking at one thing in isolation.
Exactly. And by learning from all this historical data, AI can predict when certain conditions might lead to a drop in quality down the line.
Okay, that's pretty wild. So it's like the AI develops an intuition for potential problems just by crunching all this data.
Kind of. And what's even cooler is they've gotten really good at this. For instance, some of these advanced AI models use time series analysis to look at temperature and pressure data.
Okay, but what's time series analysis?
Well, basically it means they look at how those things change over time. And you know what's surprising? They found that a super subtle, almost undetectable dip in pressure over time can be a bigger red flag for a future defect than a sudden spike.
Wow, so it's not always the obvious things that are the problem.
Exactly. And this is where AI really shines, picking up on those subtle clues.
That's super cool. So, what kind of real world benefits do companies get from being able to see these problems coming before they hit?
Well, for one thing, they can take preventative actions way earlier on.
Or like they're not scrambling to fix things after the fact.
Exactly. This leads to less waste, fewer faulty products, and all that good stuff, which obviously boosts efficiency and can save a lot of money in the long run.
Makes sense. It's all about staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. Getting ahead of the problem rather than just reacting to it after the fact.
Hmm.
Okay, so moving on to anomaly detection. This is where things get really interesting. Remember how we were talking about those sudden unexpected deviations?
Right, the things that seem to come out of nowhere.
Exactly. Well, AI can actually be trained to recognize what normal operating conditions look like for a specific process,
Mm.
based on a ton of data. Then when it sees a deviation or anomaly, in the real-time data, something that's outside the norm, it can flag it as a potential quality issue.
So it's basically like having an AI watchdog constantly looking for anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it's particularly useful for those situations where things aren't following a predictable pattern, but instead just suddenly go off the rails.
Right, it's like it has a sixth sense for trouble brewing. So
Mhm.
can you give us an example of one of these unforeseen issues that AI might catch that traditional methods would completely miss?
Okay, so imagine you have this super complex manufacturing process, right? There could be these tiny fluctuations happening, things that are barely noticeable to the human eye.
Like what?
Well, it could be a tiny change in the vibration frequency of a machine over time, or maybe a super localized shift in humidity in one small part of the production line.
Oh, wow. So it's getting down to the nitty-gritty details.
Exactly. And because AI is continuously analyzing all this granular data from tons of sensors, it can potentially pick up on these tiny anomalies that might eventually lead to a bigger quality problem down the line. These are the kinds of things that would likely be missed with less frequent manual checks or just looking at average readings.
Right, those traditional methods are kind of like looking at the big picture, whereas AI is zooming in on all the tiny details.
Exactly. It's like having this incredibly sensitive and always-on monitoring system constantly looking for anything unusual. But now, here's the question. How do you make sure the AI doesn't cry wolf all the time? Like, how do you make sure it's not flagging every little variation as a problem?
Right, because you don't want it to be overly sensitive.
Exactly. That's where setting those thresholds for anomaly detection comes in. It's all about finding that sweet spot where the AI is sensitive enough to catch real problems, but not so sensitive that it's going off all the time for no reason.
Right, you need to strike that balance between being vigilant and not being a nuisance.
Exactly. And it can be tricky. Fine-tuning those AI algorithms is super important. And this is actually an area where human expertise is still crucial. People who really understand the process need to guide the AI's learning and set those alert parameters just right.
So it's not like the AI is doing everything on its own. Humans are still in the driver's seat.
Exactly. It's more of a collaboration than a takeover.
Mm.
Okay, so all this leads us to this idea of decision support. How does AI go from just pointing out problems to actually helping people make smarter choices about quality control?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, someone needs to make the call on what to do right.
Right. So what happens is the AI system takes all those insights it's gathered, whether it's a prediction of a future problem or flagging an anomaly, and it presents this information to the quality control team along with recommendations.
So it's not just saying, hey, something's wrong. It's also offering guidance on what to do about it.
Exactly.
Mm.
It could suggest specific corrective actions or even ways to tweak those process parameters in real time to prevent things from getting worse.
Mm.
What's really interesting is how this actually enhances human capabilities.
So it's like AI is becoming this powerful tool for decision making, but it's not replacing the human element altogether.
Exactly. The goal isn't for AI to just take over and make all the decisions. It's more about AI and humans working together to achieve better outcomes. Human judgment and experience are still super important, and AI just provides those data-driven insights to support the decision-making process.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now let's talk about trend analysis. We all know how important it is to learn from the past, right? How does AI help us spot those long-term patterns in quality data?
Well, one of the great things about AI is that it can analyze huge amounts of historical quality data, and I mean huge.
Way more than a human could ever handle.
Oh yeah, definitely. And this means it can spot trends and patterns that human analysts might completely miss, because we're often so focused on those immediate problems right in front of us.
Right, it's like AI has that long-term vision that we sometimes lack.
Exactly. So for example, AI could pick up on a very gradual increase in a specific type of defect over a period of months.
And that could be a sign of something bigger going on, right?
Exactly. It could point to a problem with a supplier or a piece of equipment that needs some serious attention.
So it's like those little breadcrumbs that lead to a bigger issue that we might otherwise miss.
Exactly. And by understanding these long-term trends, companies can really get to the root of those recurring problems and come up with lasting solutions.
So it's not just about fixing things as they pop up, it's about preventing them from happening in the first place.
Exactly. And that leads to more stable processes and higher quality products in the long run. Now, another area where AI is making waves is this whole method optimization thing.
Right, so we're talking about making those quality control tests themselves better.
Exactly. And this is where those AI and machine learning algorithms come in again. They can analyze the data generated from those tests and figure out which ones are the most effective at finding specific defects.
So it's like AI is figuring out the best way to test things.
Exactly. And that means you might be able to do fewer tests overall or even develop more efficient and targeted testing processes. It's all about working smarter, not harder, right?
Absolutely. So at the
Mm.
end of the day, it could make quality control more accurate and less time consuming.
Exactly. It's about optimizing that whole quality control process to make sure it's as efficient and effective as possible. Okay, ready for this last one? This is the really futuristic stuff.
You hit me with it.
Okay, so you know how we talked about digital twins?
Right. Those virtual versions of physical things.
Exactly. Well, when you bring AI into the picture and connect it with a digital twin of, say, a manufacturing process, you get this incredibly powerful tool for simulation and prediction.
Okay, so walk me through this. How does it actually work?
So the AI uses all the data stored in the digital twin, both real-time and historical, to run simulations and see what would happen if you made changes to the real-world process. It can predict how those changes would impact quality and even help you fine-tune things before you implement them in the real world.
Wow, so it's like a dress rehearsal for making changes to your production line.
Yeah, a way to experiment and optimize things in a virtual environment without any risk to the actual production line.
That's brilliant. It's like taking all the guesswork out of process improvement.
Exactly. It saves time, resources, and a lot of potential headaches. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from predicting problems to simulating entire processes with digital twins. Now let's bring it back to the pharmaceutical world, since that's what a lot of our sources were focused on. Can you give us some specific ways that AI is improving how data is interpreted in quality control for medications?
Right, because ensuring the quality of meds is about as high stakes as it gets.
Absolutely. And while our sources didn't name specific AI tools, they did highlight how AI's ability to crunch massive amounts of data allows for a much deeper and more accurate understanding of quality compared to those traditional methods.
Okay, so it's like AI can see the nuances that humans might miss.
Exactly. For example, AI can see how multiple factors in the manufacturing process interact with each other and how those interactions ultimately affect the final product. It's about seeing those connections and relationships that are hidden within the data.
Right, because things aren't always as straightforward as they seem.
Exactly. Now, another cool thing is how AI is flagging quality issues that might have flown under the radar before. This is because AI can learn what normal operation looks like based on huge data sets, so it can spot even the smallest deviations that don't fit the usual patterns.
So it's like having a super-powered detective on the case looking for any clues that something might be amiss.
Exactly. And those clues could be super subtle, unusual patterns in sensor readings, things that wouldn't necessarily set off any alarms in a traditional system. But AI, with all its data crunching power, can say, hey, this looks a little fishy, even if it's not a clear-cut problem.
That's incredible. And this all comes back to that proactive approach we were talking about before, right? Like preventing problems instead of just reacting to them.
Exactly. And that's where predictive monitoring comes in again. By finding those patterns in the data that have historically led to quality issues, AI can give those early warnings so companies can intervene before things go south.
It's all about staying one step ahead.
Exactly. Like if the AI sees a trend in the data from a specific machine that's previously been linked to defects, it can trigger an alert for preventative maintenance or suggest tweaking the process before those defects even show up.
So it's like a preemptive strike against quality problems.
Exactly. And that's a huge shift in how we think about managing quality.
Okay, so to sum it all up, it sounds like AI and big data are totally revolutionizing quality control. They can make things more efficient through the predictive monitoring stuff, help catch those anomalies that we might otherwise miss, and give people the insights they need to make better decisions.
Exactly. And we can't forget about their role in analyzing those long-term trends, finding ways to make testing more efficient, and the whole digital twin thing, which is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Absolutely. You've given us a lot to think about, and it's clear that this field is constantly evolving.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The ways that AI is being used in quality control are going to get even more sophisticated and impactful as technology keeps advancing.
Well, you've definitely brought us up to speed on this whole intersection of technology and quality assurance. So, for our listeners out there, here's a final thought to ponder.
I like it. Lay it on us.
Okay, so with manufacturing processes getting more and more complex and the amount of data being generated just exploding, How might the evolution of AI completely change our whole approach to ensuring the quality and safety of the products we use every single day? It's a pretty big question, but definitely worth chewing on.
For sure. It's not just about making things better. It's about reimagining what quality even means in this new era of AI.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
It's been a pleasure. I always love geeking out about this stuff.
Me too. Until next time, everyone, keep those brains buzzing.